Welcome to Power Up Your Practice, the go-to podcast for law firm owners and managing attorneys working on the business, not in it. I'm Ruby Powers, your guide into the heart of law practice management, bringing you insights from leading legal minds, trailblazing attorneys, and expert guests who provide you with an actionable perspective on running your firm more effectively and efficiently. Prepare to open your mind, be inspired, and power up your practice to the next level. Hey everyone, this is Ruby Powers, your host of Power Up Your Practice, and today I'm really excited to have Alex Paykin. He is, we met through the ABA Tech Show. He's been on the board for a while, and we're serving on the board together, and I'm excited to have him. He is he has his own firm in the New York area with the law office of Alexander Paykin, PC. He's the managing director and sole owner. I think he's been on a national level. He serves on the ABA GP Solo Technology and Resource Center Committee, the ABA LPD Legal Technology Resource Center Board, and he's on the ABA Tech Show Board this year and has served in the past. He's regularly teaches continuing legal educations for the ABA, the New York State Bar Association, and you sit on 3 boards, nonprofit boards, including, oh wow, there's a lot to you. Oh, and you're also a member of Rotary, huh? Well, that's cool. Me too. So we before we started recording, we were talking about lots of countries he's lived in. So anyway, Alex, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? And looking forward to having you today.
Thank you, Ruby. So yeah, I'm an attorney in New York, primarily do commercial and real estate litigation and complex transactions. I pride myself on running a super high-tech firm because before starting a firm, I actually had a couple of IT companies that I ran among my various projects. My undergrad's computer science, or rather computer information systems, which is the slightly more software version of computer science offered at Stony Brook University. I won't get started on the distinction there. But before I even went to college, I ran a couple of IT companies, or rather the same IT company twice, which tried to drag lawyers and doctors kicking and screaming into the age of technology. Now, mind you, that was in the late 1990s, so they did not come. Or rather, they did not want to come. A few did, and they were very happy for it. But along the way, I learned a lot about lawyers, software, hardware, how to convince a lawyer that a computer is a good thing, or a doctor for that matter, and what really is good about them and what's really more of a headache than it's worth. So now I run a very high-tech practice that I run from literally anywhere. I update to the newest technology as soon as it becomes reliable. And I teach for the various bar associations and regularly publish on, if not the best practices, at least my experiences and where the technology is headed and what to be afraid of versus what to embrace. So that's me.
Well, that's a lot to take in. Thank you for that intro. And you had mentioned that you've been, we have a lot of people listening, managing attorneys, law firm owners, partners, and right-hand associates who are finding their way up the ladder. You've been an entrepreneur since you were the age of 9. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
So yeah, my family immigrated from the Soviet Union back when I was 8, working my way towards 9. We got stranded in Italy for quite a while because, well, U.S. immigration law, and you and I can go into a very long discussion on that. But as part of the wave of Jewish immigrants from the Soviet Union, the deal negotiated by Gorbachev and Reagan and then slowly dismantled by reality, we got as far as Italy, where we were told we'd get a very quick approval for a visa to the U.S. And I'm sure you've seen those letters. So no work permit, no right to go to school, no access to healthcare. A whole bunch of Jewish immigrants landed in Italy, mostly in the outskirts of Rome, with nowhere to go. So everybody took on whatever jobs they could. I came up with 2 for myself. Having repaired a bicycle I found broken on the streets and acquired a squeegee and a bucket. Squeegee also needed repairs, but that's okay. I made 2 sets of arrangements. I washed the storefront windows of a couple of stores in town on my way to a makeshift school that a Jewish organization had set up. And then in barter for that, I would get all the pastries from a pastry shop and a couple of other things from a few other stores that basically hadn't sold that morning and had an expiration to them. So on my way back from school, I would be given all of the morning's leftovers and I would bring them home. And then I would bike off to a local, I suppose you'd call it like a service area, but nothing that fancy, essentially a pub on the side of the road leading from Rome. And I washed cars there for tips, pretty much for the rest of the afternoon and evening. And at the end of the evening, I would also get all of the food that didn't sell in the pub that day that they had no intention of keeping. And I'd bring that home. And so my mother became the distribution center of this food among the community. And on the tips, I managed to actually save up, which in today's world doesn't feel like all that much to me, but almost $1,000. And by the time we left Italy, I literally had accumulated as much money as the Soviet government had allowed our family of 5 to take out of the country.
Oh my goodness.
So investments.
Wow.
So that was my first business or two, depending on how you define them. But just goes to show you, things in the garbage can be enough to start making something, anything.
Wow. And if we weren't doing this podcast, I don't think I ever would have asked you that question. So that's fun to hear. And we hear a lot of different things about people, what their foray into entrepreneurship, and just the need, and just sort of like what's that expression? I'm really bad at expressions about like. Okay, I'll think about it. But the one about you, you just sort of like you have to make do and you make it happen. I actually was I was on a tour at the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park in Colorado. I don't know if you've ever been there. It's like where they recorded or they got inspiration for The Shining or something like that. But anyway, actually they recorded part of Dumb and Dumber there too. It's got a lot of history. But the reason I bring this up, there is a circling back here, is that there is these twin brothers, and Freeland Stanley was one of them, and he's the one that built this hotel. But they were given some like a little knife and they learned how to carve some toys. And then when they were like a few years old, around 5, 6, whatever, and then they sold those, and then they kept like doing more investments and grew. It's sort of like the person who gets some piece of trash and then somehow trades it up to a boat or something. I don't know. I think I've seen that meme. But anyway, wow, that's awesome. So you so what's your firm look like right now?
Well, right now we've got a few associates, we've got a few support staff. We're just under a dozen in terms of if you include interns. But we're a nice boutique little firm. I'm very happy with it. I've grown it over the years into something that now represents about 150 active cases at any given time, primarily in litigation. And we are probably the most high-tech firm you will see. We have automated everything that you can imagine automating. Everything integrates with everything else. And we use all of the technology available to a small firm on a small budget to operate with everyone working from anywhere they want to. Now, right now, I happen to be sitting in my office. That's not necessarily usually the case. This isn't even necessarily usually the office. But today I happen to come in mostly because I like my microphone and camera setup here better for doing a podcast like this one. Normally, you could find me anywhere. You recently saw me in Chicago. In between bits of meeting, I was able to open up my foldable or my laptop or anything, because pointing to my office and saying this is my firm doesn't really scratch the surface. I can point to my staff and say this is my firm, but where they happen to be working from, how the firm happens to look, I don't know where most of them are on any given day. And quite frankly, I don't want to. I'm not their parents. I don't think it should be my job to baby where anybody is at any time. So my firm looks like an IT startup. That's right.
as long as they get the job done, right? That's what matters. Um, so anyway, so I mean, basically, what are like the essentials you think a firm needs to have to be able to have like the lawyer on the go, to be able to practice from anywhere, sort of like what you've set up?
Well, the foundation to any practice, and I think this is really true even in a traditional practice where everybody's obligated to come in 9 to 5, is a good practice management system. If
Mm-hmm.
you don't have an underlying practice management system, how are you supervising your staff? How are you supervising your files? Quite frankly, even if I didn't have any staff and I was a complete solo without even a paralegal, I think I'd still want my practice management system just so I could sort things easily and make notes for myself and put in tasks and do billing. Because I think back to 2010 and what billing used to look like when you had to fill out each invoice manually and cross-check it with a spreadsheet, before I converted to a practice management system. And I'm thinking to myself, the number of hours and the amount of inefficiency. So one, you have your practice management system that allows you to assign tasks to everyone. That allows each user to see their tasks, documents, matters, etc., calendar. It allows whoever is overseeing all this, me and my scenario, to see what everyone's doing, where everyone's is, to make sure there's no ball being dropped, there's no matter without a task, no task that's past due, and do all of that literally by scrolling through a device for maybe 10, 15 minutes and being able to say, yep, the entire firm is on track, everything's running smoothly. Now, once you have that foundational practice management system, from there, my answer is going to say it depends on the lawyer, it depends on the firm. Some are going to want tablets, some are going to want laptops, some are going to want Macs, PCs. Depending on your practice management system, it might determine what integrations you have. All sorts of stuff is going to go in all sorts of directions. And most of it is really going to be the same whether you're running a remote firm or an on-location firm. The only thing you have to remember is buy portable devices. Obviously not a desktop PC if you want to go portable, or you could have a desktop PC. I love my desktop PC. It sits there and keeps the room warm. But yeah, and when I'm here, it is a more powerful machine. I love doing research and drafting on a larger desktop device where I have two 40-inch 4K monitors and I have mission control, 3 when I need to toggle a third. And I can have 20 research windows open all at once and not have to get lost in my tabs. That's great. That's not going to work on Delta, not even in first class. I don't know what they did, but the tables refuse to support 40-inch monitors. So when I travel, it's a laptop. For those of my staff who prefer to work constantly in travel, it's primarily a very powerful laptop. For me, it's a laptop that's particularly light and particularly secure. Those are my key elements because I travel a lot and I travel to lots of foreign countries. So I want something that's pretty good at instant encryption of data, being able to toggle into a privacy mode, and something that doesn't weigh me down. Also, preferably something that could take a beating because airports. And with those factors in mind, I pick one device over another. So what everybody else would need for ideal travel on the go really, really is a matter of showing up to things like Tech Show, touching and feeling products, playing around with software, hardware, and saying, will this be useful for me? Mm-hmm. I'm sure you've suffered the same phenomenon I have of getting trials of all kinds of products and then realizing you're never going to use it. And honestly, that's the cost of doing business, because along the way, you've stumbled into products and went, oh my God, how have I lived without this? So from there, it's look at every integration available, ask yourself, will this help me? And if yes, try it out. If it doesn't end up helping you, delete it, uninstall it, cancel it, whatever. The core things for working on the go really are email, Microsoft Office, Adobe, all the same things you'd have anyway. Practice management system, cloud storage. Personally, if I'm going to send a lawyer to court, on their phone, I'm going to insist that they have an actual full Adobe Acrobat or an equivalent product where they can take the, what's the Adobe Scan is Adobe's product. So if they've got Adobe Scan, that means any document that appears in court, at a deposition, at a closing, whatever, they're not dragging back a paper copy after killing a tree so we can scan it in and then throw it away. It's much more secure to scan, put in the cloud, and never touch the paper in the first place. So a lot of those things are really a matter of look at the device you've got. Just about everyone's got a machine in their hands that could run their entire law practice in terms of computing power and built-in hardware. We've got scanning, we've got faxing apps, we've got whatever app you want out there. And it really becomes a question of, do you fax? Do you communicate via encrypted means like WhatsApp? Do you need a cloud drive? Do you want to be able to do podcasts and want to have a portable, high quality studio microphone and a podcasting camera on a telescoping stand with a tripod? All available on Amazon for just a few bucks. You want to play with the software behind it and see what's really exciting for lawyers and really, I'm going to use your term here, power up your practice. Look at cutting edge. You've got to have your foundation. Most lawyers still need Microsoft Word desperately in terms of a class, mostly at the remedial level, working their way up to moderate. And that in itself would change efficiency in the practice of law threefold. But once you've mastered Microsoft Word, once you've got a practice management system, then it's a matter of look beyond what you're doing to what you could be doing and always embrace that. So everything that blinks exists here.
So, and then just your team, I have a very similar setup where, at the beginning it was like, who's where, when, how, what, but then after a while it was like, I only just need a few people in the office when we have in-person people who come in. And so in our firm, we keep somebody from admin, from like legal assistant, we call leadership, like, and like attorney, at least one attorney ideally. But like your firm, when you do litigation, is it like a lot of files can be done remotely and then occasionally you have to go to court, or is it really heavy on in-person court?
It's interesting. It's never really been heavy on in-person court. I mean, unless you're actually going to trial, which is 5 days out of a 7-year life of a litigation case. The rest of the time, court appearances, at least in New York, are mostly, I don't want to say mundane, but they don't take all that much time. That's not where the client spends the most money. And most of the time they're not even in person anymore, thankfully. If one good thing came out of the pandemic, it was that courts, at least in New York, started embracing technology. Things that 5 years ago would have been an impossibility now are standard practice. So a lot of litigation is now done with a preliminary conference and compliance conference orders being done by email and e-filing, where the parties just agree on a discovery schedule, email a proposed form pre-filled out to the court signs off on it, it goes online. All of the actual discovery is done by attorneys emailing each other, asking things, sharing cloud folders. If you're dealing with some dinosaurs, maybe still mailing paper. But in any case, doing it all remotely in a way that could really have me be anywhere in the world. And as long as the paper gets scanned in when it gets here, I can literally have the entire file, the entire litigation, follow me on any device I choose to carry, as long as it's well encrypted and everything. But that really keeps us from having to go anywhere now. Now, there are still judges that insist on in-person appearances, but I would say in total, between the 4 full-time attorneys here and 2 senior of counsels that do appearances for us, in total, not including landlord-tenant, between over 150 cases, we've probably had an average of 4 or 5 appearances per month. And when I say not including landlord-tenant, because landlord-tenant is all about in-person appearances and things moving around. So the landlord-tenant department probably has 5 to 10 appearances a month all by itself. if not more. But outside of that department, commercial and real estate litigation, if my cases have an average of one actual appearance in front of a judge a year, I would be surprised. I think it's lower than that.
So how do you choose team members that are tech savvy, or like how do you keep them on board and constantly trained and of all what your programs do?
Ooh, when it comes to team members, I tend to recruit them young. My most recent associate just got admitted, 3 weeks ago?
Mm-hmm.
And he started working with me back when he was in his, I forget what year of high school, but I recruited him from his high school mock trial team.
Oh.
I used to coach the mock trial team. I unfortunately got pushed out of that due to conflict of interest because now I sit on the Bar Association's Law, Youth, and Citizenship Committee, and specifically on the high school mock trial subcommittee. So because I work on making the case file for the whole year, I obviously can't also coach a team. That would be unfair. So I don't do that anymore, but I've plucked multiple staff from high school years that I saw potential in. And beyond that, my old law school I recruit from, and really any inquiry that I get that impresses me. As far as training and tech, I can generally figure out if someone knows enough tech where I can train them the rest, so to speak, after 15, 20 minutes of conversation. It's not, well, let me say, in reality, I don't even need that. I need to look at their CV. You know Microsoft Word pretty well, but have you ever looked at a CV and really had an OCD moment about formatting?
Yeah.
I always have an OCD moment about formatting. So when I see that somebody manually spaced something instead of tabbing it, when the numbers aren't quite aligned, when basically they haven't followed any of Barron's instructions. And for any of your listeners who don't know who Barron is, come to Tech Show, take a class on Microsoft Word, you'll walk away a new lawyer. But yeah, I have that same level of OCD when it comes to looking at a CV and going, but this isn't formatted right. Why is this not justified? Why is this inconsistent? Why is it italicized this time and not this time? And to me, that's not just an indicator of somebody's attention to detail. Often, it's an indicator of their ability to use technology. Because there are some things you will not format right in Microsoft Word unless you understand how to use Microsoft Word. Anyone who tries to reach for it by using a Microsoft template but doesn't really understand how it works will have a couple of quirks in their resume. Now, most people won't notice them. I will. They will jump out at me and irritate me and not let me sleep that night. And that person will not work at my firm.
Well, we did a big case management overhaul recently, so I on the topic, I think about that. Like you do, regardless of someone's age, people have different skill sets in technology, and it's really about learning and sort of adaptability that's really important. And I think you highlighted something that's something that a lot of firms don't do, is just having a pipeline of talent. You see come out in even high schools and people, it's college. And I've found a lot of my associates in the past as were either my law students or at somewhere I guess lectured at a law school. And so I think that's really important to have that pipeline. But back to the technology, it's so essential for this whole remote hybrid on the go type of firm setting that it's basically essential to have when you hire and know what's the baseline and what's teachable. So why don't we move over to ABA Tech Show for a second? Like how long have you been? I think I first realized you existed last year when I saw you were on the board. I don't think I'd met you officially until we were on the board together potentially. But like how what has ABA Tech Show been? What does it mean to you? Like what are some of the benefits that you have had from being attending and speaking and being a part of the board?
Well, last year was actually my first year on the board,
Okay.
but I had been attending since 2010, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, okay.
So as soon as in fact, actually, I think before I even opened up my firm, I started attending, specifically because knowing technology is one thing. I
Hmm.
felt I was well ahead of other lawyers on the existing tech, on how to use at the time, be it Windows, Office, Acrobat, whatever. But what I really wanted to know was what was coming next.
Mm.
So I didn't really go to tech show initially for the CLEs. I went to kick the tires on every product I could find, because if I was going to run a firm that reduced the number of support hours and the number of hours spent per case, and I was going to market myself as the most efficient and high-tech lawyer, I always wanted to know, well, what is that next more efficient thing I could be doing? So every year I come back with vendors from there. Every year I integrate something. And every year I find something to be terrified by. And that's entertaining. Every year I see something at tech show where I look at it and I go, in the next year, somebody's getting disbarred over this. And sure enough, somebody does. But it's entertaining. And the technology that you see there, even the stuff that fails, ends up resulting in better tech next year. So often you may not come away with the product of your dreams, but you'll discover the name of a company, the name of a concept, the name of an idea that you had, but you never put into words.
Hmm.
But now you know it exists, and you're going to go Google it, or you're going to keep an eye out next year for what did that company do. They were a startup. They won the Startup Alley grant. They have such promising hopes of making my life easy and letting me work from Tahiti. And by work, I mean just tell the Optimus robot to do everything for me. Um, and that's the company I want to come back and see what happened to them next year. And Tech Stories Tech Show has a lot of success stories. There are companies that started at Tech Show years and years ago, like Clio, with a tiny little display with a CRT monitor of, hey, look, we have a practice management system, and now they're gigantic by legal software product standards. They're no Microsoft, of course. But there's equally tech show failures where we all saw promise in a product that then quietly went into the night or got gobbled up by some big corporate entity and turned into something we can't use anymore. That happens too. But that's where you get to see what's here, what's coming next, and what you can try out for 30 days and see if you like it.
There's there's a lot of sample or a lot of trial. Well, I guess without we sort of got a sneak peek of what's to come, but without giving too much information. What are you looking forward to for 2025 tech show?
Oh, so many things. I mean, first off, we're going to be at a whole new location, so that's both exciting and terrifying. I finally got used to the layout of the last one, but this one's bigger, so it will obviously be better. And I'm looking forward to sending a lot of my team and having them experience the kind of staple programming that realistically all by itself is, more than enough for Tech Show to be. Things like Baron teaching Microsoft Word. We're going to have an excellent panel of judges discussing the future of AI. Judge Schlegel from the Second Circuit Court of Appeals, Judge Driscoll from the Commercial Division of New York State Supreme, Nassau County. It's going to be a really awesome program. I want front row tickets for that one. In fact, I expect to get some, but if only we assign seating. But a lot of awesome CLEs, a lot of awesome tech. Right now, tech is more important than ever. And I know it sounds like one of those stupid phrases that you could say every year. And maybe you can, because tech is on the rise. But I just don't feel like in 2019 or 2017 there was anything super paramount happening when, Microsoft Word released its new version or Clio changed the color of its background. There were years where, sure, there was standard progression in existing technology, but this last year, what has been happening with artificial intelligence, what's been happening with the support software that's being created on that foundation, I can't wait till April. I mean, I can only imagine how many startup alley projects there are going to be that, ooh, I want to see what's coming next. And I
Yeah.
also want to see what the big boys have to offer, because let's face it, Startup Alley might have new and innovative things, but some of the bigger vendors out there have really big budgets that maybe they're spending on R&D. So that'll be a good time for them to showcase.
Well, there's a lot coming out in 2025 and a lot of excitement. And I think that that's a really good point about just going to ABA Tech Show to see what's the future, what's going to be coming around the corner, and being ahead in that innovator and early adopter space. And I think that's one of my big takeaways, because it pushes your mind, your paradigm. You get to talk to other people in that space and sort of compare notes from what they're seeing out in practice and or at other conferences, talking with vendors, because it's part like CLE, part trade show, part meeting of the mind. So it's a combo of all of that. Well, as we start to wrap up, we always like to ask our guests, what is your favorite board game? It helps us know a little bit more about you. And I think there's so much strategy, luck, and there's a lot of comparable similarities between board games and life. It doesn't have to be a board game, it could be a regular game too.
Okay, I'm trying to remember the game. Oh my God, the name of the game is slipping my mind now with the numbers. Rummikub.
Oh, I love Rubik's Cube. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, my parents got me into it a few years back,
Uh-huh.
and now it's become the staple game for them, for me and my husband, for my aunt and uncle in Kazakhstan, for my cousin there, for his daughter. It spreads generation, interest. Everybody hates me in it because I take a good 5 minutes and rearrange every number of the board just to place a single number down. And then nobody knows what just happened. And I'm like, see, I put down a 2. Aren't you happy?
Yeah, when that happens, I think there's a rule. So there's different like interpretations of rules, but I think there's like, if you don't play something and you moved everything around, I think there's one that you have to take some tiles or something. I'm not really sure, but I think there should be a time limit. But I know towards the very end, there's those moments where you're like, I can do this, and just give me a minute. Just don't talk.
Exactly. I'll rearrange the entire universe, but there's 2 going places.
Right.
Yeah.
You feel so accomplished if you can actually pull it off. Okay. Well, okay. Let's make a note, Rummikub, because okay, that's because nobody wants to play it with me, and I'm like, oh. But yeah, I played it with my mother-in-law in Turkey and with the neighbors, and it was a really good one because if I didn't speak the language, I could still play the game, so that was fun. What about what would you consider your superpower?
My superpower, honestly, multitasking. Everything else aside, I just don't know anyone else who manages quite as many screens and quite as many simultaneous activities. And at least from what I'm told, nobody else can do it, because they wonder how I'm simultaneously able to drive, answer emails, be on a phone call, and research the reviews on the restaurant I'm going to all at once. But I'm like, well, I have one phone with 3 screens, one phone with another screen. The car's got a dashboard monitor with a web browser. What's the problem? And it's a red light. I could do 7 things. It freaks people out. I sit on way too many boards and committees for most people to consider normal. If you actually read out every committee I'm a member of at the New York State Bar, at the ABA, at GP Solo, and all of my boards, I have at least a daily committee or board meeting. But the trick is to just keep putting things in your schedule and doing them. And the more there are, the more you have to do at once. And that's the trick behind multitasking, really, to just not question it, but do everything all at once. So for me, it works.
I mean, it could be about just time management in general and delegation, I guess. There could be elements to that with the multitasking and being able to accomplish so much. I think people are impressed when people seem to do a lot. They're like, how do you do it? But like it's really a lot about organization, delegation, and just be safe when you're doing all those things you just said you're.
Well, it's mainly about efficiency and automation for me.
Yeah. Okay.
I find
Yeah.
delegation usually takes me longer to do things than to do it myself.
Okay.
And once I delegate the entire task and I say, this is your case file, you're working on it, I don't want to know about it, then
Uh-huh.
it's faster. Otherwise, I start micromanaging, and then it'll take us both twice as much time.
Well, they usually call that abdication when you just like give them somebody something and run away. So, but anyway.
There's some fine balance of oversight, but more like a weekly, hey, have you not drowned with that yet? Good. Keep treading water.
Well, it sounds like there's more to be discussed for another day between everything in tech from delegation, time management, and multitasking and what have you. But definitely great to have you, Alex, on today's episode. I know the whole lawyer on a go for you and I, like this is normal. We've run our firms from different places. We're here, we're there. I don't even know where some of my friends are from because I just see them at conferences and it's like, oh, you're from, and you're just like on the go. But for others who are still working to navigate that and make it happen, there's a lot of great techniques and possibilities. And I think the ABA Tech Show and the people who come to it are the ones who are in that space a lot, and you can learn some really good practices. How can people find you if they want to connect and ask more questions and learn more about you?
Well, the website is paykinlaw.net. So that's my last name with law.net stuck to the end of it. And my email is real easy. It's alexander@paykinlaw.net. So that's email, that's website. And if you want to know my LinkedIn or Facebook or something like that, oh, good God. I have finally delegated, and I have no idea what LinkedIn is. I am literally going to LinkedIn right now to look up my LinkedIn. I'm sure I have one. Here it is. I do have one. Anybody who contacts me on LinkedIn, by the way, is going to get a response saying, "Here's my email. Please email me."
Well,
So that's my extent of social media. Beyond that, I have a person who says thank you to people who message me, and I don't know what happens to that. But it's apparently linkedin.com/in/Alexander Paykin.
all right.
Pretty moment.
Basically, your name.
Yeah. Just search for Alexander Paykin. There's only two of us in the entire country. The other one's an electrical engineer somewhere in the Midwest. If you find him, he's not me.
Okay, and it's Paykin for those listening. So, any last thoughts of everything we discussed? Any or best practice you want to share?
Well, just one simple but scary thought for those of your listeners who have not yet embraced technology. Technology, whether AI or anything else, is not going to take your jobs. But lawyers like Ruby and myself who understand technology and who will make it more efficient and optimize it will if you don't join us.
So I think we'll cut that and we'll put it in our commercial for why you should come to ABA Tech Show, right? No.
Exactly. The dinosaurs thought they had it made too.
Well, thanks, Alex. It's been fun, and thanks for all who listened and joining us today on everything we talked about, from the joys of Rummikub to running your law firm on the go and being an entrepreneur at the age of 9. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you want to continue the conversation, you can join us at Power Up Your Practice at the Facebook group, and we've got a lot of other cool things coming out, and you can find out more in the show notes about Alex, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
Pleasure, Ruby.
Feeling overwhelmed by admin tasks? You're not alone. Many immigration lawyers are in the same boat. That's where Staffy comes in. Over 90 law firm owners just like you have turned to Staffy for help with legal, administrative, marketing, and client-facing work. Now, Staffy's mission to help lawyers find balance while growing their firm. With bilingual virtual staff and full HR support, they take the hassle out of a team management and focus on what matters most, your clients and your practice. I've personally benefited from Staffy's support with 7 virtual assistants of my own across various areas of 2 of my businesses, including my law firm. Now, schedule a free initial consultation with Staffy. That's stafi.cc and use the code RUBY. That's RUBY for $500 off. Thank you for tuning in to the Power Up Your Practice Law Practice Management Podcast. I'm your host, Ruby Powers, and it's been a pleasure sharing this time with you. Join us next week for another episode where we'll continue to explore insightful strategies for success. Power Up Your Practice with us. See you next time.